From project reviews to incredible interviews, along with the general things in Web3, CraigO's Crypto Corner covers the space in a fun and engaging way. We dive in so our listeners can conceptualize, plan, strategize, and implement their very next move. We are quickly becoming a platform that enriches and supports the overall foundation of Web3. In order to grow, you need your voice to be heard. If you have infinite curiosity, then CraigO's Crypto Corner is just for you. Come join us.
You're tuning into CraigO's Crypto Corner, the best in Web3, blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrency technology. Great reviews, incredible interviews with the leading people in the Web3 ethos, and just the general things Web3 related. First, I want to welcome everybody in on Twitter Spaces, Facebook, and YouTube Live. I appreciate your time for being here and engaging in a great conversation this evening with a very special guest. First, I want to bring in my co-host, my special co-host for this episode, Mr. Stephen Miller. What's up, my friend?
What's going on, Craig? Glad to be back with you. We got a big episode ahead tonight, guys.
We do.
So if you're tuning in over on Twitter Spaces, make sure that you've retweeted. Let people know in the comments that you're excited to be here because we're thrilled to have some great guests on deck tonight. But Craig, I appreciate you having me back. It's going to be fun.
Honor to be here. Honor to have you here. Honor to be here just on time. So let's bring in Ralph Quintero from the Daily Ralpha with our weekly Ralpha update. What's up, my good friend?
What is good, boys? So excited to be here tonight. Love the fact that we have AJT joining us. It's going to be an episode chock full of awesome info, good laughs, amazing alpha, I hope. Looking forward to it, man.
I love the headliner in your newsletter when you said everybody gets a Fidenza. You get a Fidenza.
Everybody gets a Fidenza.
Tonight, it's got to either be a Goblin Town or a Illuminati, maybe a DAO token. Who knows? But I love it. And so it's great to have you here this evening. And what's new this week in the world of the Daily Ralpha update?
Well, you kicked it off talking about Fidenzas, man. It's been like Fidenza season. We've seen millions of dollars over the last 10 days of Fidenza sales. Last night, we saw Fidenza number 646 sell for 130 ETH. That one went to Alexis Ohanian, which is cool. A few days before that, we saw Fidenza 158 sell for 212 ETH. And then at the end of last week, we saw Fidenza 25 sell for, I think, 70 or 75 ETH. So it's definitely been pumping on the art side of things. I think that the Sotheby's, part 2 of their Grails auction has really helped to stimulate the market. And I think that we're going to continue to see that. I think, art has always been around this space and will continue to be. So I'm pretty excited about that. The other thing, sorry, you were going to say something, Greg?
No, I was going to say that the art, people, here for the art, right? No promise of utility. I was just thinking, to the right person, they, get a whole bunch of these, whatever collection is, whatever the artist is unknown, and all of a sudden before they know it, they're dripping in Ethereum. I don't know. I was just thinking, like, what would that artist be? I don't know. Anyways, what's the next thing on the list?
The next thing is Snoop Dogg announcing his generative NFT that's going to evolve as his tour evolves. I think that's pretty cool use of technology and utility for the holders. It's being launched on Arbitrum, which I also like because it's giving people exposure to other chains. That's one of the things that I love about what's happening with the Ordinals movement. It's getting a lot of us who came into this space predominantly as ETH maxis, right? To start looking at other chains, other opportunities, understand how they work. So I think from an education perspective, that's definitely awesome for the space. And I'm a fan of Snoop. So I'll be picking one of those up and following along the way. So I'm super, super excited about that. For the tequila lovers out there, I happen to enjoy tequila when I am enjoying an adult beverage. Sammy Hagar and Guy Fieri are issuing a Web3 loyalty program tied to their tequila brand, Santo Spirit. So that's going to be interesting. They're going to be giving away merch and tastings and all different kinds of things. So that's something else that's cool. The one thing I'm really looking forward to, and we can talk a little bit more about that tonight with AJT, is June 23rd is the highly anticipated Big Ink burn. So if you remember a couple of weeks back, we were able to mint our employment acceptance letters. Now we're actually going to be able to burn those for employees. So excited to learn more about that from AJT tonight. And I mean, other than that, I'm looking at the floor prices of some of these projects that we consider grails or we considered grails at some point, and all these blue chips, and I'm blown away by where some of these floor prices are sitting, particularly Cool Cats. I mean, I never thought I'd see the day that a Cool Cat was sitting just over half an ETH, but here we are. And if that is a project that you believe in, or you think that it has some legs, it's a hell of an entry point. Again, this isn't financial advice. Do your own research. But the one thing that we do know is coming is there's going to be a Cool Cat flying in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And if you go back to, I believe it was the early 30s or 40s, that's where there was a Superman balloon that was flown at the Macy's Day Parade. And it wasn't until after that parade and that appearance that Superman really took off. So, there's people in the space, particularly Cool Cat holders, that are hoping the same will be true for our, blue friends. Yeah. We'll see. I don't know.
Macy's magic. I like that. Macy's magic. And, furthermore, I think there are a number of these collections where they've been trending down in price, but I think it's where the big communities that connect and collaborate and share information on Discord and Twitter and, the storytelling. And I'm excited for what's happening with Big Ink. I loved it when that announcement happened. And I'm super excited because I owe Mr. Stephen Miller credit for getting me into the ecosystem. I knew about AJT for a while, but really didn't know what was going on until he broke it down. And obviously we're going to talk about a little bit about CryptoFace.me. That was our first big conversation. We created a nice encompassing thread around that. That was probably last year, Steve. Am I right?
It feels like it.
It was this year. Wow.
In reality, it was probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Everything
in this space feels that way.
My time would be off then, right?
Actually, for full transparency, because I always like to share it with anybody, especially when I'm speaking publicly, my truth holdings are one of my biggest bags. I know. So just want to be transparent with everybody.
I mean, if that with a collection of over 2,000 digital assets, I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't hear that and that doesn't make you excited, I don't know. I'm grabbing some more tomorrow, and that has nothing to do with this episode. That's just a fact. But before we get with our guest, I want to just share a quick screen share. Thank you. For those of you who are not subscribed to the Daily Ralpha, it's a 5-minute or less read every single morning at 7 a.m., bright and early. Keep on the latest of Web3 related news, encompassing everything. All right, so let's go to the intro and then we'll bring it in. All right, in this episode, we welcome a true visionary, Alex Taub. He is an esteemed co-founder of Truth Labs, renowned masters of storytelling in the world of Web3. More importantly, the focus for Alex and the Truth Labs team lays on long-term value of strong intellectual property. We will discuss in detail their digital assets ranging from the mesmerizing 187 to the Illuminati, Goblin Town to Big Ink, and my favorite, PP Goblins. We will also talk about his company Upstream and the groundbreaking DAO token, which is setting new standards for interactive and engaging learning experiences, which is also referred to DAO in a box. No code is needed. Let's get into it as we explore one of the most imaginative and immersive digital asset ecosystems that is building long-term value for their holders. There is so much to unpack as we plot, plan, strategize, and implement our next move in Web3. Welcome, AJT. How are you?
What's going on? How you doing? You make it sound so professional. Thank you.
I mean, that's what this podcast is. I mean, I hope after this point, How did you, I want to start off with you on Upstream. So Upstream, as I understand it, originally was Web 2. And I think you're filling a niche that indirectly LinkedIn isn't completed. So I'll give you a quick example. LinkedIn, they know who you're connected to, but they don't know why. So if you can fill that gap of how Upstream started and now how we've kind of morphed a little bit more, not a little bit more, a lot more into Web 3, maybe that's how we can start this.
Yeah, I mean, Upstream's Upstream, the company behind Upstream, called it, the entity is called Modern Mass. Actually started in 2014, so it's 9 years. And the first thing we did was we launched something called Social Rank. That was back in 2014, and Social Rank was like a social media analytics product, and it got really popular really fast. It was like one of the best Twitter and Instagram audience tools out there. And we ended up growing to like 100K in monthly recurring revenue. And our customers were like the NBA and the NFL and Netflix and Samsung and L'Oreal and The Rock. and the Kardashians and the Ellen Show, and basically everyone on Twitter and Instagram used our audience tool, because we were like what you do is you log in with your like Twitter account or your Instagram account, and it would pull in all your followers, and then you could sort of slice and dice by location and interest and keywords and all this different stuff. So we ended up building it out, and then in 2018, Cambridge Analytica scandal went like crazy, like went supernova, and they just started pulling back what you could do with the APIs. You know, speaking of APIs, like Reddit right now, you know, basically that happened with Instagram in 2018, where they just like shut. Like I remember going to lunch with the team. We got back and like nobody could log in anymore. It was like D-Day for Instagram, and we just saw the writing on the wall. We found some ways around some of those limitations, but we just saw the writing on the wall. So we ended up selling Social Rank in 2019, and we just sold the IP, the assets, and you know all our customers to a company. And we ended up keeping the entity, and then started. It took about a year of us figuring stuff out. We ended up starting Upstream. And it started off as trying to build the next like sort of LinkedIn or next professional network. And this was at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. COVID was just sort of rearing its head, and you know, virtual events, virtual communities was really popular. So we started getting into that business at the time. But my co-founder and I, Michael Schoenfeld, we had been in crypto starting in 2012 at a company called Dawala. So we were, even though we weren't actively in crypto anymore, we had an Ethereum rig in our office. We were messing around with ICOs. We were doing DeFi, NFTs. So we were like very familiar with the space. We had a front row seat to the emergence of Bitcoin, because Dawala was one of the most popular ways to get money in and out of these exchanges. And so we, you know, as we evolved Upstream, we were thinking what's the vision, even from day one, was what's the future of community. And it felt very obvious that, you know, community sort of like 3.0 was a DAO. And that's sort of how it you know, sort of evolved naturally into it. Yep. From the outside, it maybe looked like it was a pivot, but it was like a slow evolution into what does a community look like, and what is a community that's surrounded around money and programmable money, and what could that look like? So I know that was a long-winded sort of background, but that's how we sort of got where we were.
No, I mean, I think us learning sort of the storied history of how this came together and sort of the natural progression. So a couple of things that I think about, and I'm curious what Steve and Ralph's thoughts are in just a second, is you were able to realize trends, right? So when you think about Social Rank, and I did read a little bit about that. I wasn't sure where we were going to go tonight with that, and understanding how that was sort of the next foray. When you sold that in 2019, and you were able to take some of those funds and invest. My question is, into this next part of the business of Upstream, and again, COVID rearing its ugly head, were you able to spot a trend and see, well, for instance, I like to go on LinkedIn and I'll post a little bit about my career with seniors and real estate, and it works really well depending on what I post, title lines. But was there a specific trend like with Social Rank? And you said, Ken, you were able to spot something, an analytic tool early, to be able to say all these big names, NFL, NBA, Kardashians, you name it, were utilizing this tool. Then you got bought out, and you were then able to morph. With Upstream, what was like the number one thing when you looked at LinkedIn as a comparative? And I know you have a lot of respect for that platform, as do I, and it's definitely very useful. Was there a certain a niche that they're not filling right now that you feel like? And I've been on Upstream. I've been in the meeting rooms. I absolutely love it. I love sort of the time session. So I'll let you dive on that. But was there sort of a niche that you think you're filling with that? And I believe you are, but why don't you tell us a little more about that?
You know, it's sort of funny you mentioned, like, so Social Rank, we just built a tool that we thought was fun and cool and useful, right? I was always trying to dig in, like, who's my biggest follower on Twitter or Instagram? So we sort of built something that was fun. We only realized it was a business after had a friend who worked in Nike, and he came to the office. We were all based in New York at the time, but he came to the office, and we were showing him off what we had going on. And we had this tool called Market Intelligence, where you could look at other people's accounts, because all the data is public, but you can't really like sift through it. So we showed Nike like LeBron and Adidas and all, and they're like, how much can we pay for this? And we're like, I don't know, like I think it was like when it was early on. It was like 2014, so I was still like a baby. I said like I don't know, like five. He's like, oh, 5,000 a month. Yeah, sure, okay. Here's like month, and then like that was our first customer. It was Nike. So I think I was saying like $5. I don't know. It was like it was one of those things where I was like, all right, sure, you want to give us $5,000 a month? But so what ended up, so we saw like, okay, there's a really interesting opportunity around looking at data and understanding. In terms of upstream, when we got into like virtual events and virtual communities, we just saw that like COVID, you were going to be home for a while. We basically within 30 days of COVID starting, we had a virtual events product that was meant to make people connect and not feel lonely. And those first few months when everyone was really in lockdown, like a lot of people told us that like the upstream events like really just kept them sane, right? They can, because that you could also meet people in like these little rooms. We removed that after a while and made it more. The events product now is really tied to a DAO. So like if you have a constitution like DAO and you want to like host a town hall or something, then it's useful for that. The virtual meetup events, I think a lot of people post COVID, although I don't know if post COVID is the right word, but like, they sort of just want to meet in person and
Right.
socialize, and they don't really want to meet someone for
Yeah.
5, 10, 20 minutes in a virtual room anymore. Like we're
Yeah.
like done with that.
I think there's a balance, by the way. I think there's a balance of the human connection. And then sometimes, you know what, it's great just to connect this way. Yes, I wish you were here in person, hanging out in our awesome studio. But I understand that, it makes a lot of sense. And you guys were timing and everything was impeccable, not necessarily intended, but it happened and it all kind of fell together. So maybe a luck have it. Let me dive in on this with you, right? So you've launched the 187, which was interesting about the gas fee and how you guys corrected that. And I got the lowdown from Ralph on that part, cryptoface.me with the DAO. I mean, there's so much to unpack, and we'll do that in just a second. But a lot of really good collections that are out there. When I say digital asset collections and communities, I want to say communities more than collections, right? To refer to it as a group of people that have invested in a particular type of token. Do social rank like metrics out there from behind the scenes, not being social rank? Do you guys use it in some point to figure out how the community's engaging, what type of content you're going to set, what type of timing there actually is when you put out something, to know how many likes, shares, the engagement, the retweets? Is that something that you guys utilize in part as a tool behind the scenes? I'm not asking specifics, but I think you go to a bigger important point.
Yeah, no, I think measuring stuff and looking at stuff is really important. I've been doing it for a long time, trying to see who's our biggest follower on this and that, and reaching out to people that we'd want to work with in some capacity. Yeah, for sure. That's definitely important.
So let me shoot this over to Ralph. Ralph, this is your biggest bag. Help me understand why.
So I'm a marketer, and from the very first time I met AJT in person, and he handed me an Illuminati pin, and we had been in contact before as part of JPEG Morgan, but it just sparked my interest, right? Like I could see that every move around that upcoming collection was very calculated, was meant to bring people together in a unique and interesting way. And I'm bullish on the team. I mean, I love the art, but honestly, it's the team. And you've heard me say this on the show before. You've heard me say it on the Daily Ralpha. I invest in people first, and AJT and his team are top notch.
I love that. And quick screen share if we can, Tony. So Steve, this is where I think we forged part of our relationship. I always say, like in Web3, you're connecting, you're talking about building of relationships and community and cohesiveness. I want you to share a little bit about cryptoface.me. I know a lot about it, but I want you to share with the community what excites you about this part of the collection within their overall ecosystem.
I think Steve's muted.
Steve, you're muted.
I've really tried to get out of the habit of this, but I just keep going back. It's too addicting to me to just stay on mute. This goes back to the Illuminati DAO, right? So when AJT and the Truth team put together the Illuminati NFT project, part of the entire appeal of it was that part of the what you paid into it was going into a DAO that all the holders were going to have control of eventually. Now, this now goes back, AJT, you'll probably have to correct me on this one, but it feels like it's probably about 5 months back now. They found this, well, not they found, they launched this project called CryptoFace.me through the DAO. So the DAO funded the entire initiative and basically contracted with some individuals outside of the DAO, partially on the Truth team, to help develop a novel contract to really redeploy this historical NFT that is called CryptoFace.me. It's a really interesting project, at least from my perspective. I like historical NFTs, but altogether, it's going back to something that predates CryptoPunks, which I personally am super bullish on. I think it's a really cool idea. But that's kind of how it started. It started to weave its way into this larger Truth Lab story. So AJT, to put it to you, what
Yeah,
was
I could
the
explain
experience
a
like
little
with
bit
building
more.
this out? And can you explain it a little bit more?
Yeah, so when we were putting together the DAO, which came about like 3 or 4 months after the mint, I think we launched the DAO officially in April of 2022. So when we did the original Illuminati mint, right, 50% of it went to Truth Labs to develop the world we're building, and 50% went into a DAO. So there's, I think, 25% of the money staked right now in for ETH, so it just doesn't sit there. But there's like close to 1,000 ETH sitting there, and we have an executive director, McDougat, for those that know in the community, and a council of like, I think 15, 16 people. Some people on the team, some people in the community, and someone in the community just found a NFT project that launched at a hackathon that predates CryptoPunks by like 3 months, and it was sort of abandoned, and it was called CryptoFace. It was called CryptoFace, and it was basically the first attempt known like that is like on-chain identity. And it's not like a 10K PFP project. The whole thing was you sort of build your avatar and then you mint it to the blockchain. And like it's so old that I think at the time you had to like enter your seed phrase, to like when you were minting it.
God.
Like it was like pre. I think maybe MetaMask was out already, but it was like pre any standards. So we basically like started to dig into it. We found the guy talking about it on Reddit, and he basically said if anyone wants to take up the mantle and do something with it, it's sort of like he sort of gave the rights out. So we basically proposed it to the DAO, like, can we sort of bring it back, and interact with the original smart contract and sort of take pieces of that and launch a new contract that lets actually to create a collection. So we basically put it out there. We said anyone who owns an Illuminati can basically mint a free one. And there's about 4,000 something minted, and we're closing up the mint in 2 weeks at the end of the month. And then however many get minted, we said that max 10,000. However many get minted by the end, that's how many there will be. And what's cool about it is that everyone who made one gets a piece of the profits of when you sell it. So the reason why you can do that is because part of like sort of the Howey test and what the security is, the investment of money with the expectation of profit, with the work of others in a common enterprise. And because, first of all, you're not putting any money in, right? You can mint it for free. And because you're actually making the art yourself, you can get royalties on it. So every single person who makes one can sell it, right? So you get the money from the sale. But then if it gets resold, you get a cut every time it gets resold, which is pretty cool. If it really takes off and is really popular, it could be a nice chunk of change as time goes on. So that's CryptoFace. It's it's a DAO initiative, so it's not part of the Truth Labs lore ecosystem. It is its own thing that was sort of created by the DAO. So there's not going to be any piece of it in the the sort of like 187 Truth Universe Goblin Town. Like it doesn't exist there, but it's still really cool and something that I think is one of those things that could sort of take off at any point. because of just the historical aspect of it. Like, it is the original contract. It is interacting with the contract from 20, I think 17, right? I think that was, or I believe 2017. So that's why there's never been any, like, not that there's never been any rush to do it. It's just like it has that historical context to it. A little different because it's not like a rapped punk or something. You know what I mean? It's not like all only old contract. It's a combination. But every time you do create one, you are minting it on the original contract also.
It's the cool cousin. It's the cool relative who's just coming to hang out. They're related, but they're not brother and sister within the direct ecosystem. So that's pretty neat to hear a little bit more from that end. And again, you spoke about the Howey test and sort of things to get around the concerns of this being treated as a security. And Ralph and I have talked about that a number of times. So I want to unpack a little bit of the 187 with you, right? So there was this mint 187. I believe, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, it was a free mint, but you had to pay the gas fee. And then that
No, that's not. So the 187 was the first 187 people who minted Illuminati. So what it basically, yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. So what basically happened was when we initially opened the Illuminati mint, there was an issue, and although the team is like try to get me, like, we have to find a different origin story, because like we don't want to always like point to like we had an issue with the original contract. But you know what? CryptoPunks had an issue with the original contract, so I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world.
You have way more successes than challenges and obstacles. You've had people rallying around you. I mean, we're going to get to Goblin Town. I mean,
Yeah.
I talk about New York City going, blah, 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 whatever that was. It was pure genius. So don't worry if there's a short in that. And again,
I'm not worried about you guys. I'm just worried like the team's gonna be like, stop saying there was an issue with the contract. No, but that's the reality of the situation, is that there was an issue. It was like an errant comma or something like that. That was basically just throwing the and mutable contracts. There's nothing you could really do. But it was just throwing off the gas. We were actually looked recently. The gas was like a few $100s by the time we shut it off.
I'm 165 and 166, and I can tell you that I paid significantly more for gas than I did for the NFTs themselves.
Actually, the net positive is it's worth a lot. Go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, I had 165, 166, 167, 168. 167, 168 was sitting in my son's wallet. He actually sold both of those damn near the peak and got himself a brand new Jeep Wrangler. So he loves you.
Wow.
I love him too. I didn't get a Jeep Wrangler.
We love the 187 issue with the contract.
Dude, I love that. I mean, it's great. When you see that type of stuff, like, that's awesome.
By the way, if we can, okay, we got past that. Let's talk about Goblin Town, because that's where you first came on my radar. And I'm like, okay, if digital assets, because I'm trying to get away from using the word NFT, the letters. I was like, what is this? Why are they doing it? Who came up with the idea? That's my first for Goblin Town. How did that even happen?
Yeah, it was definitely a collaborative effort. Everyone sort of contributed something when we were doing it. The initial idea was I message Process Gray, who's the artist, co-founder, and Caesar, who's my co-founder and old friend. And I was just, sort of, I don't know where it came from, but I just had this idea where, like, wouldn't it be, the whole space has gone to Goblin Town, and wouldn't it be crazy if everyone just changed their PFP to a goblin? And I just sort of could see this like Twitter space where it's like just a sea of goblins. And I was like, and I sent something like, someone could like really crush it right now if they put together like a PFP collection of goblins. And I think Gray's first response was like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? And then I was like, well, Goblin Town is like from, Lord of the Rings, or specifically from The Hobbit, where like, and the Twitter spaces sort of like adopted it to be like when, down to Goblin Towns when you lose all your money. And he's like, I could put together really quickly like a ugly, like sort of Ren and Stimpy style collection, and we could just see how people like it. And Caesar was like, yes, this is like, there's something here. And then we just started like, working through it. And we were already building out the 187 and the world. So like the 187 are like the 187 like sort of characters in our universe. And one of them happens to be a goblin. But we were already building out the 187, and we just like, it just naturally felt like a goblin sort of like could live in that universe. Because we were here, Gray had already drawn like, probably a dozen or two of them. And so it just felt very natural. And we basically just like put our brains together for a little bit. Then we started to like bring in the team. So like, Sydney on the team, came up with like the Twitter Spaces and the voices and the language, and Scott made all those crazy websites, and Bruce did all the music and a bunch of the videos, and Steph wrangled us all together, and Nifty Labs did the contracts, and everyone on the team did something different. So it really like couldn't have like worked if it wasn't for everyone being really good at one thing, or a few things. And it just like originally the idea was like commemorate the crash of the market, right? That was the idea. It's like, we're going to launch a collection that's free, that people could just mint. You can only mint one to a wallet. And our only concern, honestly, the only thing we were thinking about at the time, our only concern was like, are people going to trust that this isn't a wallet trainer? I remember that was really our only problem. It's like, art's great, story's awesome, really fits in with everything. How are we going to get anyone to mint this if we don't put our name on it? Because the idea was, can we do this anonymously so that people could focus on the art and the story, as opposed to, because we felt like every collection people were just focusing on the team, right, and the founders and whatever, and they weren't letting like the art or the story be the focus. Like, so we're like, okay, could we put this out where people just focus on what it is, not the people behind of what it is? Sorry.
AJC, let me shoot this to you, right? So 187, obviously we know at what point the collection, that first part of the collection started, and then it jumped to the Illuminati, which we'll get to in a second. But I want to talk about the first two mints, why they're pivotal, and the importance of IP for one getting, I believe, merchandise, 1% of merchandise, and the other person getting, correct me if I'm wrong, in perpetuity of 1% of the Goblin Town collection moving forward and past. Can you break that down a little bit? Because I thought that was such a brilliant move.
Yeah, so we've always been fascinated by IP and different licenses. So, and by the way, I know Goblin Town was like crazy, as I said, but Illuminati sold out in like 30 seconds. So like it's you know what I mean? It was cool. And actually it was sort of crazy because Illuminati, and I don't recommend anyone to do this, was a full month-long mint. I don't recommend spreading it out like that. But we started in like beginning of December, and then it went on till January 3rd. But on purpose. Like we basically, it was like
3 phases, right?
Like, yeah, it was 3 or 4 phases. Phase 1 was at the time, like whoever the leaders were in the space. So it was Bored Apes, it was CyberKongs, it was VFriends, it was Punk's Comics. Azuki didn't exist yet. Then phase 2 was like Mutant Apes and Gutter Cat and Cool Cat and I don't know, a bunch of other. Anyway, it was just like crazy. And if you were a holder of those things, then you could, because the whole idea was like the Illuminati, it should be like the best collections should have access to this. And there was like 200 spots for apes and 200 spots for this. So we got a really nice group of people to mint it. But yeah, in terms of IP, Goblin Town has been CC0. Illuminati was giving the rights, similar to like a Bored Apes license. And then the 187 was different. We came up with this thing called a collaborative NFT license. And the idea was working with the holder, because it's only 187, right? Characters. We look at it as like the 187, like, we're nowhere near this, but like imagine Marvel, right? And then there's like Wolverine, there's Iron Man, there's Spider-Man, there's Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, there's Doctor Strange. These are all characters, and the characters we're introducing, we've only introduced I think 30 something out of the 187 so far, and we typically do them once a week. We're taking a break right now in June while we get Big Ink out, but the idea is to release one a week, and then scale up when we can focus on it completely. But the idea being, these are the characters in our universe, and the holders of those characters should have some sort of relationship. So King, for those that know him on Twitter, he's an amazing guy. He owns the Goblin, and he owns 1% of the collection. So he got backdated, and then going forward, 1% of any secondary action, because there was no mint for that, like mint price. He got I think he got you can see it's all on chain, but I think it was something like 40 something ETH.
Yeah.
Backdated, and then going forward, I think since then he's already gotten like 1 ETH-ish since that drop, since the whatever. So he's getting that, and then the other one that we announced was Ding Ding, and she owns Bridge the Wall Dragon, and we're gonna do a buy this look merch. We're not doing it yet, but we're gonna do it hopefully soon. And it's not 1%. We're figuring out I actually think the deals we're doing and can do. We could do multiple deals, right? I didn't want King to be the only one, so I think we're actually splitting that 50-50 with Ding Ding. So it's not 1% of merchants.
That's awesome.
It's going to be pretty high.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic to have those partnerships directly tied to something that they never expected was going to happen in a million years. And to say I'm part owner in something is pretty powerful, and you're holding this digital asset in your wallet. So protect that with your life, When we think about the 187 and we think about Illuminati, we think about Goblin Town, we think about PP Goblins, and there's a couple other
PP Goblins. I just want to say PP Goblins, I love them, but they are literally like no one's gonna ever do anything for them. So like, just if you want to buy a PP Goblin, do it because you like it and you want to, because you enjoy it.
So you're saying
there's zero. There's 0% royalties too. Yeah.
And you're saying for Illuminati and for Goblin Town, we should have some level of expectation, no promise, but the expectation should be when you get a token, you get into the community, you get involved, and you get to the story and the lore, right? And you talk about, and I want to dive in Big Ink with you, because that's, to me, is really exciting, right? You said on the crash, we introduced Goblin Town. Like, this is horrible. This is bad people. Now, Big Ink is, I'm going to be an employee 00764321, whichever you deem me. I've got my letters. I'm ready to go. I've got 3 of them. Might even get some more, but you're an employee, all right? And we've seen this failure. I always say that any losses that I've taken in Web3, and my losses compared to some of the other losses I've heard are pretty minimal. I say it's my scholarship fund. I paid to be here. My biggest bet is this platform in which you're on tonight, that I get so lucky to share some time with you and my good friend Ralpha and Steve. But when we think about Big Ink, what does this mean as positioning part of the storyline? And where do you want Big Ink to go this year? What should people expect? No direct secrets, but a little alpha to excite all the people who are listening.
Yeah, I mean, so we announced, I think a day or two ago, that the burn is going to be next Friday, the 23rd, so 9 days from now. And it's I like to think of next week as like burn week, right? Because it's like we're starting on Monday, starting to give a lot more information that a lot of people in the community have been like, they just don't understand what's, basically 90% of people who got Big Ink got it for free, because a lot of the stuff in the community, we gave a lot of these letters for free. And we've said that they're deflationary, right? So there's 15,000 of them. We've said that they're deflationary, but we need to start explaining what's going on, right? What is Big Ink? How does it fit into our universe? What is, and the funny thing is, like, if you actually look at if you go to the 187.xyz and you go to the back cards, because if you click on each character, there's a little story behind it, with like different attributes. It feels like a little bit of like a Magic the Gathering card. And it's actually funny. I think we've said this. Like, Bruce on our team is making a card game, board game with the 187 characters. So if you're in the Illuminati and 187 Discord, like, we've been talking about it. We actually play tested it at Art Basel 6 months ago, and I think he's getting a new version that's going to be downloadable for some people. We're gonna Anyway, but the point is I forgot what I was saying. What was I saying?
No, you're good. We were
You were talking about Big Ink and how it fits into the ecosystem.
Yeah, but I was gonna make a point. Oh, yeah. So next week is like we need to explain it, right? Every day is gonna be a different piece. Like on Monday, we'll explain high level what's happening, the story of Big Ink, introduce a few characters, and maybe introduce one of the executives because there's five executives on the team, right? Besides Big Mister, who's the CEO. Then the next day we'll explain maybe the goblin letter and the believer letter. So each day we're going to explain some more stuff as we build up to the final day. So next week we're looking at sort of like burn week, but at a high level, right? The story of Big Ink is the sort of the foils of Goblin Town. So like for the past year we've only seen one side. Like if we think in Star Wars, we've seen the Jedi, right? And we just have not seen the Darth Vader and we haven't seen the Stormtroopers, right? And so one of the first things we did in Goblin Town was there was something called the story of the mysterious egg. And for those that remember, it was like one of the first, it might have been the first, like metadata changing. Like it used to be like a big no-no to change the metadata of your NFT. I don't know if people remember this. Now, because like things like checks and OPEPins do it all the time. But for a while, like it was blasphemous if you change the metadata. And Goblin Town was like a very like counter everything, right? So it's like, if you think we're going to do this, we're going to do that. If you think we're going to do that, we're going to do this. So 5 of the NFTs in the Goblin Town collection was this thing called the mysterious egg. And what it did over about a month and a half period was tell a story. So every like 3 days, I think 2, 3, 4 days, the metadata would update. Sometimes it would be an image, sometimes it would be a GIF, sometimes it would be a little video, and it would tell a story. So it started off as a mysterious egg. Then the 2 days later, the egg cracked. Then 2 days later, a goblin came and smashed it. Then the wizard came and did something, and basically the story, in the middle of the story, we get introduced to Grumples because they were sort of in the egg, and they sort of hatched and they sort of ran away. And then a dragon came and they ate the remaining Grumple. Then the dragon died. Then the dragon came back to life. And basically it was the origin story for like Big Mister, who's the CEO of Big Ink, which we didn't know at the time. Now we do. And he's like basically Darth Vader, right? Like to use it in something that can ground people. It's like he's the Darth Vader. He's the CEO of Big Ink. And Big Ink is like not necessarily a bad company, although they do brainwash, cute animals and torture them and stuff them into suits.
That sounds
yeah, he's sort of evil, but like he's sort of like the foil of goblins, right? Like he runs a company, he runs a tight ship, right? He needs good workers. And but no, so the story of Big Ink is so we got introduced to Big Mister and he's been like the foil, but you didn't really know his deal. Now you found out that he's the CEO of the conglomerate in Goblin Town, and it's called Big Ink. And Big Ink sort of is like they sell everything. They're like a mix between
QVC,
like GE mixed with like Raytheon, mixed with like Amazon, mixed with like P&G, right? They literally sell everything. Like they're like that. If you actually went to bigink.business, the site, every few days the tagline would change. I think it ended up with like we literally sell everything. That was like their tagline. So the story is he's kidnapped animals who live on the outskirts of Goblin Town, and he's stuffed them into suits and have them working. So they're like brainwashed and they're sort of like indentured servants. And there's, I think we're ending up with over 60 different animals heads. So everything you could think of from every animal you could think of that's in the NFT land. There's an ape, there's a penguin, there's a seal, there's a frog, there's literally every collection you could think of. There's representation. And we're starting to like we've basically been introduced to the other side of the sort of the world here, or the like Goblin Town has really been like an anti-corporate story where goblins like don't want to work and they like sort of piss on the floor, and Big Ink is slowly but surely like de-goblifying Goblin Town.
I want to assure you of one thing. As an employee of Big Ink, I promise never to piss on your floor. That's going to be first. The second,
Actually, wait, funny story for a second.
yes.
We didn't do it, and maybe one day we'll do it. But there was like an early version of Big Ink before people would know we were Big Ink, because we like sort of played around with like, just like getting it out there slowly, seeing who was noticing and paying attention. But we had this idea where there would be like we called it a PP game. I don't think we're going to do it, so that's why I'm saying it. But the idea was like it was going to be like a Big Ink instruction manual, and you basically, it was like going to be a game where you like have to learn how to pee in the toilet, and it was like you'd find out eventually it's like a Big Ink like manual of like how to do proper etiquette to come to work, and you'd like control this little like goblin PP, like, and by default it would like pee on the floor, and then you have to like fill it up. I don't know if you remember like My Fucking Pickle from back in the day, where everyone like had to bang the thing. The idea would be like you have to fill in the toilet with like some amount of gallons of piss, and I don't know, it wasn't really fully fleshed out, but the idea was like, wouldn't it be funny if we made like a pissing game that ended up being a work manual for Big Ink? But
my son who's 6 going to be turning 7 this summer. I think he and I would appreciate that if you did. We would mint it and it would be in his wallet. And it
was just going to be a game. It was going to be like a game where you connect your wallet.
I'm trying to get him to have proper aim, AJT, and I'm having trouble with that. So this manual for Big Ink, we might, and again, there's no age barrier at Big Ink, I believe. Am I correct?
Real life utility.
The utility. And by the way, before we get to Steve and Ralph, because I want to hear what your thoughts are, here's a couple things that I think about. One is lure, storyline, timing, building the sizzle, delivering the steak. So I'll give you my quick story, and then I want to hear what Steve and Ralph have to say. So I remember when I was minting my Big Ink contracts, or my employment letters. There we go, employment letters. And I remember seeing that I'd spent about $30 on gas for all 3. And it showed that I had a value that I could have sold it just on wet offers of about $500. I did not think for 1 second to sell that. And that, to me, subconscious, or when I think about the psyche, is when you're excited about a community and you're excited about what they're doing in the space and what they're doing as far as timing, strategy, high-level thinkers. Before we bring it over to Steve and Ralph, and I want to hear what they have to say, when we come back from them, I want to talk a little bit about Process Gray and your team, because I feel that that's a very important metric. When we think about communities that we want to get into, the things we want to be a part of, it's about strategy, high-level implementation, storyline, and flawless execution. And when I got into your site to get my employment letters, it was very easy. It was super quick. So from a tech end, you guys know what you're doing at every turn. So let me go over to you, Steve, and then hit to you, Ralph. What are your thoughts thus far? Any questions for AJT?
I mean, I always have a number of different questions. It's just a matter of how much alpha can I really dig out of AJT in any given moment. I probably
a lot.
He's the worst secret keeper ever. I'm surprised he was able to keep the Illuminati. I'm sorry, the Goblin Town secret so long.
Look, if you're not in the Illuminati, like, you should be in the Illuminati to begin with, but you should try and also go make sure you go secure an Illuminati DAO token, because every single week AJT and McDougat host these great DAO calls to really keep you informed, and that's really where he spills the tea. So that's where you really should be, cluing into to get the alpha. But AJT, first and foremost, I want to wish you a very big congratulations on the 1-year anniversary of doxing as the Goblin Town team. That was today. It's
the best and worst day ever. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, but there was a lot to it, right? It wasn't just like, it's like the entire story of this project, right? Going all the way back to Illuminati. Like, so many things have happened across the entire timeline that, like, there's good and bad, right? Like with every single project. But my question to you would be more along the lines of, like, within this journey and how we've come to where we are today, how does what was at the beginning tie into where we're at now, right? How does the Illuminati tie into Big Ink going forward? How, like, what is that dynamic going to look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. Once the Big Ink burn happens, like, I think we're going to be entering a new phase for truth in general. Something that we've been talking about, myself, Gray, and Caesar, a lot, is like, just the space in general. Not even talking Truth Labs, the space in general. What's happening with the space? What's happening with us in general? And then there's like a handful of things. And actually, this past week on the Dow call, I spoke a little bit about this. But there's just a handful of things I just believe to be true. And it's not that I'm not giving you an answer. I mean, the big piece was that like every Illuminati had a free mint of big ink. You know, we look at this as like this is like, it was funny. Like we were looking for like a adversary to goblins, and like even though we dropped like millions of dollars worth of NFTs on the community for free with 1,000 we like left over, for some reason the Illuminati community like sort of like hated the Goblin community for a lot. You know, Goblin Town thought we were spending too much time on Illuminati. Illuminati thought we were spending too much time on goblins. You know, trying to like sort of bridge the gap and be like, hey, listen, you're all under the same umbrella. It's sort of like, imagine like there's like Deadpool and then there's like Captain Marvel, right? And like, you know, or like Captain Marvel's not good. It's Deadpool and then like Moon Knight, right? In the Marvel universe, right? You might like Deadpool and you might hate Moon Knight. You might like Moon Knight and you might hate Deadpool. Just different communities, but under the same umbrella that like, if Marvel does well, like both of those things get more resources, they do more things. So, you know, we're trying to, not trying to make an arranged marriage, but like Illuminati and a lot of the Illuminati lore, right? Like by nature, it was just, it's a secret society. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like really great for, you know, getting everyone excited about a secret society. And secret societies are usually like quiet. They move in the shadows versus Goblin Town, which is like loud and boisterous and you know, sort of in your face. So I think the communities have like sort of struggled on our end. Like we've tried to make it make sense all together in the same universe. Now that being said, the sort of next phase of what a lot of the stuff I'm thinking about is, you know, we want to create great stories and great characters, right? If you create great stories and create great characters, you can do anything in this space. Not in Web3, just in general, right? There's a reason why Star Wars, you know, 30, 40 years after the movies come out, can still, 50 years after the movies come out, can still create amazing shows, is because the stories are great, the characters are great. And, you know, when you have great stories and characters, sort of the sky's the limit. So when I think about the stuff we need to be focusing on, it's really creating great stories and great characters, more so than anything. And I think the concept of mainstream in this space is starting to set in for people. Like, you know, Ralph, you mentioned before, there's going to be a Cool Cats, you know, in the Macy's Day Parade. I don't think there's any collection. I think the only one that's sort of touched it upon a little bit is actually Luca and Pudgy, that like is going to, when they say we're going mainstream, will have any positive impact on the value of an NFT. And the reason why is because that value of going mainstream goes to the company, does not go to the holders, right? So you look at doodles, right? I have a doodle. I like doodles. They're great. But like, I'm not expecting that like when they're going mainstream, if they become the next Pixar, you think like, oh, my doodle's going to be worth something, right? I don't necessarily buy that, right? And it's not a knock to them. Like they're trying to do everything they can to get the brand out. But I don't see that translating into floor price goes up. I think it was an initial thought that people had that once you go mainstream, someone comes and wants to buy your stuff. But I think actually mainstream actually leads to more cheap NFTs for a lot of people.
Dilution. I knew I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Not necessarily dilution, but like just more cheap NFTs for a lot of people, or just consumers. And I think right now a lot of collections as well as holders are coming to reckon that just because I, you know, own an NFT does not necessarily mean that the project or the collection that I bought is going to go up in value. Now, there's a lot of ways you could do that, and there's a lot of ways to get there. And part of the stuff that I've been trying to solve and you know, with my conversations with my co-founders and whatever, is like, what is the path forward for holders that they can actually get value, right? That's like actually real, as opposed to like, I think the incentives are just so out of whack in this space, and there's actually, so it's funny because like Gray was the one who sort of put this to me in the right way, and he's really great. Like what, yeah, I don't know if people here have spoken to him, but he's just like, he's very matter of fact.
And by the way, we're going to get to Process Gray in just a second. And I love that you said that. Oh, don't worry. I got you, my friend. But you said great story, right? Great characters. So I might just throw the idea that, you know, come Macy's Day Parade, I might just shoot you a DM and be like, hey, JT, that cool cat was floating. I'm looking at this collection. Remember what you said. Now, mind you, you do have a good point. When you go mainstream, the risk is that you can dilute, because now what is the company going to want to do? They made this money. They're going to want to maybe produce more of it. Now, it'll be interesting to see what Cool Cats does. And in this space, you made another great point. It is completely out of whack. So before you go further, Ralph, what are your thoughts before we go into the team?
So it's interesting because as a doodle holder, I actually feel the same way that AJT does. And that's the PFP that I go public with and is kind of the face to the brand, to my brand. But like, you know, with doodles launching whatever their putt or any of their like camp, you know, collabs and stuff like that, I don't see how that trickles down to the holders. I believe, and AJT, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, I believe that Luca, for some of the pudgies that they did turn into toys, they ended up licensing some of the ones from their holders.
From the holders. Yeah, like 15 or 16.
So that is one way of trickling it down, I guess, similar to what you guys are doing on the 187s. Right. And to me, that's one of the reasons why I would never sell any of my 187 assets. Actually, it's interesting because it's one of the collections that I get the highest bids on all the time. Like just offers all the time. It's like my inbox every day probably has 2 or 3 offers for my 187s. It's rare that I don't. And I have zero plans of getting out of it. And even like my son, who I shared, had an amazing win from that, still looks back and goes, I wonder if I should have done that or not. So it's definitely interesting. I'm definitely bullish on the way that you guys have structured things. And I agree with you, AJT. I don't know that, you know, what a lot of these bigger brands are doing is actually going to trickle down to the holders ultimately.
Yeah, and by the way, that Craig, what I was about to say was like, the truth of the matter is that most people, like the collection teams, want volume, because volume typically means royalties, so that they can do more things if they're in doing the more things business, or you know, and then people who minted for free or sold on at the top, they're happy because they made money. The people that are still in the community typically either have recently joined the community or they held up and they held down. They sort of like round tripped it. And, you know, some people get fed up and they leave, right? And they go to the next hot thing and they try to like trade into this and into that. You know, they go to Nakamigos and then they go to this, you know, they go to Pepe and then they go to Ben.eth and then they end up, you know, whatever. They go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I just, you know, I just don't, I guess the way I'm like thinking about it these days, and this is something I've been trying to find a solution for. And just for people that are in the truth ecosystem, I think I did find a solution for it. And I pitched it to Gray and Caesar, and actually Gray came up with an even better idea from that idea. And both are viable. But we have to talk to lawyers to make sure it's legal first. Which is always a good thing when you have to, like, it's so good. You're like, you have to make sure this is, because we don't want to do anything like, it's already such an unregulated Wild West that like anything we do, we need to make sure is like on the up and up.
And by the way, AGT, we're going to talk about the 5-year cycle. What your thought is, what I look at as if you have your crystal ball, your Illuminati crystal ball, 5 years, 10 years from now. But before we do, because I think you have a lot of solutions, and remember, you're going to be dropping some heavy alpha come Monday. So I want to pull at you enough to get people here to engage and maybe think about if they have some extra ETH sitting on the sidelines. This is the ecosystem you might want to think about hopping into. I'm in it. Ralph's in it. It's big as bag. Steve is definitely in it. I know that for sure. Before we do, I want to talk about your team. And I want to start off, Tony, if you can do a quick screen share. Incredible artist, Process Gray. Tell me a little bit about him, how you guys collaborated, connected. I mean, obviously, he's a co-founder as well. Help me understand how that relationship came together and how invaluable he is to the ecosystem as it relates to the visuals.
Yeah. I only met Gray in the summer of 2021, right? Is that where we're a year? Yeah, 2021, summer of 2021. I had been talking to Caesar, I had known for maybe like 10, 12 years. We went to South by Southwest since, I want to say 2011. So yeah, like 10, 12 years. We'd been good friends for a while. Actually, he'd come to my when we lived in New York, he'd come to my parents' house on Friday night for a Shabbat meal. He was the only non-Jew that I know that when I invite him over for a Friday night Shabbat meal, he would have a competing Friday night Shabbat meal somewhere else and sometimes have to reject it. But so Caesar I'd known for a long time, we've been good friends. And have always been supportive of his company 1 second every day, which is he had one of the most popular TED Talks, and 1 second every day is always like the #1 app every beginning of year. The movie Chef has a big part of the 1 second every day is a big part of the ending of it. The movie with Jon Favreau and I think Sofia Vergara and a few other people. And so Caesar and I had been, we bought Bored Apes really early on. Like together we were chatting and we were just buying NFTs and like shooting the shit and texting all the time. And we're just like, we should start our own thing. Like we should come up with our own idea. And he was like, yeah, I have an amazing artist, really good friend of mine that I went to school with at Pratt. And I have like this amazing like artist network of web designers and creative people if we can come up with something cool. And make a long story short, came up with the Illuminati idea. I remember calling Caesar and we were building the DAO stuff at Upstream, and I was like, you know what? Like it would be cool if the Illuminati existed. It sort of would be like a DAO in the Web3, and like maybe there's some play where like a percentage can go to the DAO. I remember initially we were like, let's charge 1 ETH and like make like, this was like when things were wild. Like let's charge 1 ETH and make like 80% of it go to the DAO and like have just like a war chest like Nouns DAO. Anyway, we ended up going with like 0.23 with most with 50% going to the DAO, 50% going to the Truth Labs. Yeah, so I remember just calling him, and then he's like, there's something here, the iconography of like the pyramid and the eye, and there's something really there. So he ended up sending Gray. He's like, can you draw something? And he ended up, I think it's in the collection. The original sketch is in the collection. And then he just started banging them out, and we're like, dude, this is amazing. And then he slowly started working on it. Basically starting in, if you look at the collection, it is wild. Like it still blows my mind how beautiful it is. And he started working on it at the end of the summer. And then we released it in January, right? So he worked on it for a few months, whereas like Goblin Town was a 10-day sprint.
So let me shoot this to you. But the other thing that a lot of people think about is legal team. And I've watched a couple of your podcasts that you were on talking with one of the attorneys that you ended up hiring for mergers and acquisitions. And what I found really fascinating is every time that you would sneeze just to call the other attorney and like name them nameless, you didn't name them and smart, right? You should probably get a letter like, hey, can't do that. But you were smart enough to see that, hey, if we're going to go through this process and it's complicated. And there were a lot of things as you were coming down the pike. And I think it might have been a little bit more with Upstream, and I'll let you kind of.
Yeah, this was social rank days.
Which I thought was really cool. And the reason I said that, I went back into the archives and found as much as I could, but it goes to talk about high level strategy. You saw that something wasn't working. You saw that something from a money standpoint, and you needed this legal advice, wasn't working. What was the thing that made you switch? And is there advice out there for people who are getting into this space from a founder standpoint and a creator standpoint and developing a team? When you think about legal, are there a couple tips out there that people should be thinking about and knowing? Because that's part of your team.
Yeah. I mean, on the truth side and the Upstream side, we use a few different lawyers for different things. Mainly on the like employment and like the series docs for Upstream, because we've raised like $20 million dollars. We use a firm called Law by Levin, a guy named Zach Levin, great lawyer. Was in New York, convinced him to move down to Miami. I think he likes it now here. Yep. And then for like a lot of Web3 stuff, we use FRB Law, Falcon Beckerman, FRB, Falcon Rappaport Beckerman, and a guy named Moish Peltz, who's actually will be on tomorrow. Talk about the Uki DAO stuff. There's two guys there, Moish and Kyle. They're really great, and help form the DAO for Illuminati, but also just like across the board, helping like with everything from all the just like everything to consider and all the potential pitfalls. And yeah, the law firm we used before, I don't want to call out any law firms. They're great people. We just happen to be costing an arm and a leg when we were doing the Social Rank acquisition. And I just knew I called them to talk to them about what we could do, and I ended up with like a $4,000 bill. And I was like, if this continues, there will be nothing to sell, But I think
so that
was a while back.
How you made that pivot. So talk to me a little bit about and then we're going to move on from there. But talk to me a little bit about your work relationship with Michael, who's your other partner.
Yeah, so Michael and I have known each other since 2011. We joined a company called Dwala together. I ran the business side of the API platform. He ran the dev, developer evangelist side of the API platform. And then we were always just like building and having fun and building, going to hackathons and doing things. We ended up leaving in 2014 and started Social Rank together. And then we raised a small round of funding for Social Rank back in the day. That all transitioned over to Upstream. And we've been working together forever. We're like an old married couple. And he is just an absolutely phenomenal developer. He can do it all. He can build mobile apps. He originally started as a hardware developer. So he used to take apart computers when he was younger. He actually once built, when we were thinking of what to do after Social Rank, because we were had a good 9 months where we were just coming to the office every day and just like shooting the shit and pitching each other ideas. He actually built like a smart mirror that was like Tony Stark style. And like hardware is actually his original love. He could build mobile apps. He could develop in basically every language. He'll probably build an app for, the Vision Pro. Like he's just one of those like can do everything type of devs. And we just like got along. Like from now to the future, like I'll just always want to build technology companies with him just because we know each other so well and we know how to work with each other. It took some time, obviously, like when you're with someone for 11 years and like, there's definitely some dark years where we're just like, we wanted to know what we wanted to do, this and that, but like, it's come out the other end.
It's finding your momentum. It's finding your cadence. I think it's it's something I'm doing here. I mean, the daily Ralpha newsletter, Miller's is at every corner trying to figure out the next moves and the things that he's going to be able to add value to, and he does. He adds a lot of value here to this podcast for sure. And then Tony, I want to do a quick screen share if I can. All right, AJT, what's in this box? Don't deny it. I need to know.
Oh, is that the box for the number one? What is that? What are we looking at?
What's that? That was released the day that Louis Vuitton dropped their influencer.
Oh, I don't know. I think we're just making fun of them.
I know. That's what I wanted you to say.
I didn't see that. Yeah.
It wasn't a trick question. We're good. That was.
No, there was a box I saw that was about because the part of the Big Ink Mint was like the worst trader in NFT land, which ended up going to Dingling.
Yep.
And it wasn't really because he was the worst trader. I mean, he was by the math, but no, it was because he never sold any NFTs. So one of the days of the down bad board, he just got absolutely wrecked because he like never sold. Like he minted or bought 1,000 bonsai NFTs like back in the day. Like he just held on to everything. So he just got wrecked.
He's the elevator rider. You ride it up to the top and you slowly ride it down. And that's never a good feeling. I think it's the reverse psychology, right? It feels great to buy. You're like, oh, I'm going to get rich, whatever it is. And then you see it go up and you sell and I sold too soon. And there's only ever maybe just a few times where you go, that was perfect timing.
Yeah.
You know, and literally it has to come.
I had one of those. So I share a wallet with my good friend Drew Austin. And
by the way, shout out to Drew Austin. He's been on the podcast.
Shout out to Drew.
Yeah.
Shout out to Drew. And anyway, we bought pre-reveal.
Dead run horses. You have 50 of them.
I have 300 dead horses.
300 now? Oh my God.
No, I've always had 300.
Oh.
I have like 100 Genesis horses. Wow. I'm just gonna sit on them forever. It doesn't matter. They covered all my costs when it was hot and I was like breeding and selling.
You're like the worst Big Ink employee because you're not a loser. I'm sorry, you're a winner.
Oh, I mean, I don't sell much, but yeah.
To be humble right now.
No, but Drew did one of the best trades. We didn't mint. We bought pre-reveal a collection. I'm not going to mention who because I don't want to, say anything negative on anyone. But we bought pre-reveal and we ended up with the #1 rarity when it revealed, and we got an offer. And this is when ETH was at least 3,000 to 4,000. We got I want to say a 50 ETH offer.
Oh, beautiful.
For the thing. And I was like, I don't know, maybe this is the next big thing. Drew's like, dude, like we're selling this. Like, what are you talking about? Good man. And we sold it, and that I don't even know what the floor is right now on the thing, but there's no way that it's even in the stratosphere of what we had.
You just sparked a memory. So I remember with Upstream when I was, again, this is during the lockdowns, you and Drew on Upstream were a blast to listen to. You guys would literally be on the Upstream and say, hey, we're going to go mint this. Oh, by the way, this number is on for whatever collection or whatever it was when, digital assets were being printed and money was just being, thrown out the window, and you could pretty much throw spaghetti at a wall. And if you know how to mint or you know how to purchase secondary, you were pretty much guaranteed that you were going to possibly make some money. It was the likelihood was good at the casino. And so it was really fun to listen to you guys when there was all that excitement. So it was just, you sparked that memory,
Yeah, wow. I found it, by the way. It was 50 ETH and it was the value net at the time was 171K. And now just in ETH dollars, it's 82K. And the person did not sell it, and they've transferred it a few times. So maybe they did do a sale, whatever. The highest offer right now is 0.35.
Oh, wow. I'd be curious to know what collection that is, but I'm not going to ask you. So, wow.
And it was definitely the high sale of the collection. And so
hey, you know what?
I'll take a W.
Know when to hold, know when to fold. Ralph, what are your thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, look, you have to know when to walk away, and I applaud AJT for that.
So it was not me. I was like, we should hold it, and Drew was like, "Are you on drugs? What are you doing?"
I'll applaud Drew on that one. Actually, I have. So your equivalent of Drew for me is Benjamin, and Ben always keeps me in check.
I like that.
Like when things are absolutely rocking and rolling, he's the first one to like slide into my DMs and go like, take profits, man. Don't forget, take profits. So
if you're taking screenshots, you should be taking profits.
Exactly. He has to remind me still every time, but I'm grateful that he does that. And it serves as a nice reminder for all of us not to get too caught up in all of this. Because historically we look at these numbers and it's pretty much the example you just gave me, JT. It's, the staying power of a lot of this stuff isn't great.
AJT,
we probably just moved that money into something that went to zero. So it's like,
AJT, you recently theorized that NFT customers can be categorized as 90% of people looking for quick money. And correct me if I'm wrong, 5% community focused and 5% art enthusiasts. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Will Bing Inc. try to shift this narrative or address, as I'd like to think, it's kind of a problem, right? Because to me, I'm not looking for the quick money anymore. Don't get me wrong. If I get it, then the question to Ralph is I'll text and be like, hey, should I sell this? And he'll usually give me, and Steve will give me that friend advice and say, CraigO, cash out. Where are you? So do you think that narrative can shift a little bit with Bing Inc? Because I kind of do. What are your thoughts?
No, I don't think so. And not to take that's not what it's trying to solve. Right? Like the 95% of people who, like, the truth is it's 100% of people are here to make money. Just 5% are like the community and they like the art, right? Like even people who only like community, only like the art. It's not like they're not going to be like, oh, I don't want to make profits, right? They want to make profits. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with wanting to make profits, right? But it's just like then, because you could see like what's happened with the evolution of like meme coins, sending money to wallets.
Yep.
Right? They just like want to make money, and that's cool. Like that's great. But I think there's like the emotional aspect of an NFT and the community aspect that like maybe blinds people to like the thing that they want, and then they lash out, they're upset, they're mad, that they didn't take the profits when they took it, etc. But no, Big Ink's not meant. Big Ink right now is meant to help introduce a bunch of characters and further the story. The stuff we do after Big Ink that we're working through right now is meant to address some of that stuff. And just like as a there's two things, right? One of those things is like most people are here to make money. Almost everyone's here to make money, and that's like a fact. And you have to like accept that and not try to like ignore that. You used to think like, oh, if I just focus on my thing, if I just focus on my roadmap and do everything on my roadmap, like everything, it's like, no, that's like too naive. And you just need to realize that people are here to make money, right? And like they would literally buy a NFT that was a pile of dog poop if it meant floor price tennies, right? Like they just would.
Right.
And you and I would do it too. Like we're like, oh, great. This is literally a pile of shit. And I will, as long as the floor is high or it goes up, like I don't care. And that's just the reality of the space, and it's important to come to terms with that and be realistic about it. The other piece here is that the market is constricting. It is not expanding right now, and there's just way too much supply. And this is not just a truth thing. This is a entire NFT space, right? When you had a 10K collection and you had 100,000 wallets vying for it, that's okay because there's like 10x demand. When you have 10,000 wallets vying for, 10, 20, 50, 100, 10K collections, it's a recipe for disaster. So I just think that the supply side of things is just way, way, way too much. And that, a combination of the making money and the supply is like top of mind and goes back to like, what can you do about those type of things? And how can you change that? That's the things that like are not keeping me up at night, but just like making me think and trying to come up with creative solutions for that.
And I think the 5% on the community focus is probably the most important part, right? You're right. We all want to make money. I get that. But I think sort of the Big Ink thing, at least how it's met me and why I got excited around, not just aside from Steve and Ralph, is because I just loved the story play or the storyline on what Big Ink is doing and all the posts. And so as I engage with it more, it's maybe it's changed my mindset. Now, mind you, that's just my optic as a podcaster, creating content, engaging with founders and trying to figure out, where that line is, right? Because I want to make money. I want to know that there's liquidity there, but I'm not looking for my exit. And maybe that's more to the point. And before we head to the rapid fire questions from Mr. Stephen Miller, as we finish out the podcast, and then maybe we could stay on for another maybe 10 minutes in Twitter Spaces, see if anybody has questions. I do want to talk to you about, why did you choose the Dolphin for the Upstream My First DAO tokens, and how long? I guess that the question is, right, you had said that these dolphins, right, over time, these tokens will go up in value as people, or not go up in value, apologize, will create more rarity in trait based on level of someone's engagement. Can you expand on that for me?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I asked Process Gray to draw a dolphin for me for the token like half a year ago, and we just finally got to use it. The idea behind it is there's our logo for Upstream was a dolphin for some time, and we ended up killing the dolphin. So we felt like this was like a nice way to bring it back. Now, in terms of the rarity stuff, etc., it's a 6-month course. So my first DAO is a 6-month course. Every week there's a different speaker, and those speakers are different topics, right? So tomorrow at 4 p.m. every Thursday. We also do a playback at midnight for people overseas. But at 4 p.m. it's like tomorrow we're doing DAO proposals, and we have Vera and Vulcan, who are on the ApeCoin DAO Council. They're the speakers tomorrow. Now, in terms of the rarity stuff, every person who attends the events, they end up getting a badge. Think of it as like a POAP. And everyone got the first week one, as long as you owned a dolphin. Starting the second week, which we just airdropped both of these today, is every week you're going to get a different badge. And at the end of I think it's 24 weeks, right? 6 months, 24 weeks. You'll be able to marry those badges with the dolphin when you burn it. You're going to burn it at the end, and depending on how many badges you have, you can guarantee yourself a level of rarity. So meaning if you go every single week, you get 24 badges, you can probably guarantee yourself something of like a 1% rarity. So maybe it's going to be generative. So maybe there's a, king, like a crown, like a king's crown. And maybe that's only ending up in 100 of the NFTs. So you have something that has like a 1-2% rarity, right? That's how we're thinking about it, is like, you can just guarantee yourself rarer traits the more of these like these tokens, these badges you have. And they're you can't buy them or trade them. They are what's it called? They're soulbound to your account. So you have to come, and then we airdrop it to the people who came.
See, that's creativity at the highest level. That's people who are building in this space. As I like to say, AGT, it's an opportunity market. It's not a bear market. And so this is the time where builders build. They rally around the community. Again, I'm the 5% that hopes that it continues to grow, where we're here for more of the right reasons. And yes, making money is a beautiful thing. Let's not pretend that doesn't exist. And that being said, Steve, I'd like you to hit Mr. AJT.
Before you go to Steve for a second, just to clarify, the 5% versus 95%, it's just that I think that there's like a misalignment between the creators and the owners, right? Owners think that they're investors, but the creators are going for consumers. And I think that there's the misalignment there. And that's part of the stuff I'm trying to figure out, is like, how can you properly align that everyone is on the same team, on the same page, and going for the same thing, which right now, it's not even a true thing. It's literally the space thing, right? Like, I own X of any collection. I am sort of at odds with the team. The team wants one thing, I want something else. Not necessarily me, but finding that equal, like that place where everyone's on the same team. Right. I would unlock a lot, I think, for a lot of people.
But I think high level of communication, there's a give and take at every corner. And I think the fact that you're aware of that is, again, as I like say, there's these little metrics that now I wish those bells went off. I would have saved myself so much money, would have made so much more, right? Talk about money. And I would have been in communities that whether I rode the escalator up or down, I would not have cared. And I'm grateful now that I'm having more knowledge and I'm having conversations with people like yourself in this space. And I just want to say it's an honor to have you on my podcast. And I've been wanting to have you on for quite some time. And then wrapping that up, Mr. Stephen Miller, can you please hit our special guest with some rapid fire questions?
Sure thing. So first one up is actually a write-in of a friend of mine. Curious because you were mentioning so much about the floor price as a partial metric along the discussion today. What would you say is your preferred superior metric for perceiving value of an NFT collection over floor price?
I think most people in this space that's where it starts and ends. So I think it doesn't like you can put your head in the sand and be like that doesn't matter. But if that's what everyone is looking at and is perceiving the value of your collection based on that, then that's what it is. You know what I mean? So it's like in the end of the day, I could say I think it's unique wallets that hold it, but at the end of the day, you could have 80% unique wallets. If there's no demand, there's no demand, right? And there's demand of NFTs in general, and then there's also demand of a specific collection. And I think demand of NFTs in general is like an all-time low, right now. But I think also demand for specific collections, ebb and flow depending on what the team's doing, etc. So while you may not be able to control the demand for NFTs in general, you could try to do things to control the demand for your own project. And it's right now the best way to do that is hype, speculation, promising things that you probably shouldn't promise, and a bunch of all that, which is not great long term, because like hype just begets more hype, and then eventually hype runs out. Everyone's seen it for every collection. It's the joke is when you actually deliver something, that's when people be like, all right, well, I guess it's here now, so send it to zero. So it's a tricky beast. And that's part of the stuff I've been trying to solve that is actually solvable, because I think in the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is mechanics. A lot of this stuff is setting things up that things that that it's hard to explain without like saying exactly what I'm thinking, but I'm not like that far away from being able to sort of share more broadly like my actual thoughts here. I'm just sharing more like the facts as I see them and the problems and premise of the situation.
No, I totally understand that.
This was not rapid. You can continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So my next one to keep it a little bit more rapid for you is looking back to the Illuminati. Are you an iTrade guy or are you a base guy?
It's a great question. I like them all. Like, honestly, I just think they're just so like visually stimulating. There's some of them I see and I'm like, damn, that's just so nice. Like, my Illuminary is like the Wolverine and the basketball. Just two things I like: basketball and like Wolverine. So I don't know. I like mine.
All right. Well, I like mine. I like mine as a perfect answer. So going back to Goblin Town for our next question, a lot of people like to say that Goblin Town was the marker of the the coming of the bear market, right? The official we are in the bear market. If that's what Goblin Town was, what is Big Ink as it relates to the market?
Love it.
Yeah, Big Ink is like, hey, you guys all lost all your money and all your jobs. It's time to get to work. So come, pick up the broom, get and pick up a shift. Yeah, I mean, listen, 2022, everyone lost their money. 2023, it's like now you got to go work. And I don't know. That's how we see it. Is like this is maybe the market not picking up, but like more of the time to do the dirty work now.
My hope is
I
only
was
more
about to say,
employees.
I can see you, Craig, that you want to jump in with one. So go
No,
ahead.
I was just going to say, my hope is we get more employees into Truth Labs. That's what we need. We need more employees for Big Ink. That's what we need. That's what should happen tonight. And that
There
is,
is an unlimited amount of people, a limited amount of animals we can bring into Big
I
Ink.
love it, and that's what we need. And why don't we do this, Steve? One more rapid fire question, and on that note, AJT, one more rapid fire answer, and then let's hit into our Twitter Spaces and see if we have any questions from our community.
Sounds good.
Cool.
So AJT, in terms of Big Ink, you mentioned the animals. Are you going to lean towards the call it the forest wildlife or the farm animals as we go into Big Ink?
It's a great question. There's so many different animals. There's also like non-animals, I guess. Like I guess a fishbowl head is an animal.
Mhm.
I don't know. There's like I don't want to. I guess we're starting to say stuff. Like there's like a cloud head that's like really cool. It's not an animal. It's like a cloud. There's other things that are like just the collection is like visually wild. Like some of the best art I've seen, and I think there's something for everyone. But I don't know. I'm not sure which one. I have a few favorites so far. I would say my favorites. I'm trying to see. I have some on my computer. I would say some of my favorites. I like the fishbowl head. I like the lion head is really cool. I like the zebra head. Yeah. I think the most iconic one though is the dog. Probably the dog's the most iconic.
I was gonna say I'm probably gonna lean dog once I see it, but I'm also very privy towards that goldfish head. That goldfish head is something special. But Craig,
Yeah, there's two. I think there's at least two goldfish heads. I know there's an orange one. I think there's also a blue one. There's some prehistoric stuff also. Like there's all types of animals.
AGT, I love what you're doing, man. I think it's awesome. I think the team around you, the talent, the relationships you've built, your ability to be a conductor at such a high level and connect with other people. And I appreciate you taking out an hour plus to speak with our community tonight, to build further relationships and get more people, more Big Ink employees. We need more. We need more. All right, guys.
By the way, you know what the best ones are?
Yes.
The best is the executive suite. They're amazing. Like absolutely phenomenal. And I wanted to show them a lot earlier, but the team didn't want me to because they're like, the collection doesn't look like that, right? Like you'll see. I think we'll release one a day from Monday to Friday next week.
The alpha to the community starts on Monday, where we get sort of a peek as to what's going on.
They're so good.
Friday is the launch date, where we all become official employees, right?
Oh yeah.
All right, let's do this. We're going to close this up right now, and then we're going to hop into Twitter Spaces. We have a lot of people, so close us out, Tony. Thank you so much for watching CraigO's Crypto Corner, the best in Web3, blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrency technologies. CraigO signing off.